Alright guys, Mr. T here. This is your last video on doing arithmetic manually. And this is the hardest one, unfortunately. It's division manually. I'm not going to be teaching you long division. I'm going to try to teach you a shortcut. So the first thing we need to acknowledge is the different names, because I'm going to refer to them for the numbers involved. The number being divided is called the dividend. The number you are dividing by is called the divisor. And the answer that you get has a special name. It's called the quotient. I won't really refer to the quotient at all. Just get your head around dividend is what I'm dividing up, and the divisor is what I'm dividing the dividend by. So the divisor is placed to the left of the answer bracket. So you write your answer bracket like this. So in school, previously you might have drawn the curved line there and the straight line above, but I'm going to ask you to do it below. And you're going to put the divisor, the number you're dividing by, to the left of that. The dividend is placed inside the answer bracket, so inside meaning on the right of the answer bracket there. In division, you work from the left to the right, so you start from the left digits and you move right. And so here is the set of processes, the set of steps that you're going to need to do. They're long, they're extensive. I'm going to read them out to you anyway because I'm going to teach it. But you'll really get the gist of it when we see an example and you practice it yourself. So you're going to look at the leftmost digit of the dividend. So you're going to look at the leftmost digit of the number inside the brackets. And you're going to try to divide it by the divisor, which is on the outside, on the left. If a whole number of the divisor fits into the dividend digit that you're looking at, you write that number below the dividend digit you're looking at under the answer bracket. So you write it under there. So you're looking at the leftmost dividend digit. If the divisor fits into it, you write the number of times it fits underneath the dividend digit you're looking at. Now, so that's the first possible thing that can happen. If a whole number of the divisor fits into the dividend digit, so it's the same as before, but there's a leftover, which we call the remainder, you write the remainder above the next dividend digit to the right. So let's say this was the first dividend digit was 5, and you were trying to divide it by 2. Well, 2 fits twice into 5, but you would have 1 left over. You would write the 1 above the next dividend digit to the right. This complete set of digits on the right, the next dividend digit on the right becomes the whole dividend number you're going to try to divide next time. That step will be made clearer when we do an example. It's a bit confusing now with just the words. If a whole number of the divisor does not fit into the dividend digit, so say the dividend digit you're looking at is 2, but you're trying to divide it by 3. So 3 is bigger. A whole number of the divisor isn't going to fit into it. What do? You combine the digit you're looking at with the next dividend digit on the right, and that's what you try to divide by. So it becomes a bigger number. Instead of just looking at 2 here and dividing by 3, you combine the 2 with the next dividend digit on the right. So let's say the next dividend digit was 0, so it become 20. You try to divide 20 by 3 instead. When you've worked out how many times the 3 fits into it, you write that number underneath the rightmost dividend digit you were looking at. Lastly, if all dividend digits have been divided but there's still remainders, so you've gone all the way through and you've gone to the rightmost dividend digit, but you still got some numbers left over as a remainder, you don't have any numbers left to put the remainders on top of. So what you do in that case, you put a decimal point to the right of the dividend and zeros to the right of that, and then you continue the above steps. So that gives you numbers to write the remainders over. And you'll continue. Hopefully you don't have a recurring quotient or recurring answer, but if it is, you need to decide when to stop. Lastly, the last rule with divisions is the decimal point in the answer is lined up with the decimal point in the dividend. So if your dividend has a decimal point, let's say here, well, the quotient, the answer, is going to have a decimal point in that same place as well. So let's run an example here. Let's run a few examples here. So the answer bracket written there, I write the divisor on the left, on the outside, and the dividend on the inside. So here's the process. I look at the leftmost dividend digit, it's 2, and I try to divide it by 6. 2 divided by 6 doesn't work, it doesn't fit. So I'll write a 0 underneath that 2. Now we're looking at 2 combined with 5, 25. 6 does fit into 25 4 times. So you write 4 there, but 4 times 6 is 24. So there's a remainder left over. That becomes the first digit of the number in the next column. So we combine these two digits together and it becomes 19. So now that's what we're dividing by 6. 19 divided by 6, well, it's not a whole, it's not going to be friendly. There's remainders there. The closest multiple of 6 to 19 is 18, which is 3 lots of 6. So you'd write 3 there. 6 fits into 19 3 times with 1 remainder. 1 goes on top there. That becomes the next number that we're looking at and try and divide by 6. How many times does 6 fit into 11? Well, it doesn't fit twice because 12 is bigger than 11. But it fits once, so you write 1 there. And we have run out of digits to use here. So you put the decimal point on the right and you add zeros. Add as many as you want. Put the decimal in the answer lined up with it. Okay, so how many is left over? What's the remainder from 6? Because it only fits what? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 50. So the next digit we're looking at is 50. How many times does 6 fit into 50? 8 times. The closest multiple is 48, which is 6 times by 8, and you have 2 remainder. So the next digit we look at, the next number we look at is 20. How many times does 6 fit into 20? 3 times with 2 remainder. We're looking at 20 now. How many times does 6 fit into 20? 3 times with 2 remainder. So we can see that this is recurring now. This isn't going to go on forever. So we could write recurring there. So I'm just going to check the answer to make sure I'm not completely wrong. 2591 divided by 6. 431.8333 recurring. So that's correct. So that's an example of how you run the process. You try to divide these numbers by the divisor. If it doesn't work, you extend it. You divide that next number by the divisor. If there's a remainder, you add it on the next column to the right, and that becomes a whole number you try to divide by the divisor. I had remainders here, but no numbers left, so I added a decimal point, added zeros, and then carried the remainders over onto those zeros. Example 2, I want to show you what to do when you're dividing a decimal number. So once again, you draw the answer bracket here. The divisor goes on the left. The dividend goes on the right or inside the brackets. So I just made these up. These aren't going to come out really nicely. So look at the first number, 2. Does 12 fit into 2? No, so you write a 0. Does 12 fit into 25? Yes, it fits twice with 1 remainder left over. Now we're looking at this column here, 19. Does 12 fit into 19? Yes, not twice, just once. And what's the remainder? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 7. So we look at this number now. 12's into 71. 12 goes into 71 5 times for 60. Put the decimal point in line. What's the remainder? 60, 11. So 11 is the remainder that goes across. Now we're looking at 116. How many times does 12 go into 116? It fits 9 times for 108. We've got some kids coming in. 108 and 8 remainder. How many times does 12 go into 83? 6 times. 6 times 12 is 72. What's the remainder? 11. How many times does 12 go into 112? 9 times for 108. What's the remainder? We need to write as zeros. We've already had a decimal point. 108 up to 112 is 4, so we're now looking at 40. How many times does 12 fit into 40? The closest multiple is 36, which is 3, with 4 remainder. How many times does 12 fit into 40? 3 with 4 remainder. So we can see this is going to recur. So your answer to that is going to be 215.9693 recurring. So let's just check that I'm not wrong. 2591.632 divided by 12. 215.96933. Yes, so I'm not an idiot. Last example, dividing by a decimal number. So I'm chucking this example in here because you need to do something slightly different if you're dividing by a decimal number. The secret to this is equivalent fractions. You can't divide by a decimal number using this manual technique. But if you multiply both the dividend and divisor by the same factor of 10, so if you're timesing both the dividend and the divisor by the same number, you're not really changing the question, all right? If you times them both by the same factor of 10 until the divisor has no decimal in it, the answer will be the same. Why does this work? Well, think about this. 1 divided by 0.1. How many tenths fit into 1? Well, we know that. It's 10. Well, if you think about it, if you multiply both of these numbers by 10, what does the question become? It becomes 10 divided by 1, because 1 times by 10 is 10. A tenth times by 10 is 1. What's 10 divided by 1? 10. It's the same answer. So we can use that to our advantage to stop from having to divide by a decimal divisor. So multiply both by 10, remove the decimal from the divisor, allowed us to divide normally and still achieve the same answer. So let's try that technique on this question, which is 300,000 divided by 0.01. Okay, I need to divide by a factor of 10 until there's no decimal point in the divisor. So I need to jump the decimal point twice in that direction. So I need to divide both by 100. So the question will become 300,000 with 2 extra zeros divided by 0.01 times by 100, 1. Okay, and then you can chuck that into the answer bracket if you wanted, but the answer should be pretty obvious. So 1's into 3 goes 3 times, and then 1 doesn't go into 0. You just write these zeros underneath. So let's just double check that in the calculator. How many times does 0.01 fit into 300,000? 300,000 divided by 0.01. 30 million. 30 million. Okay, so that is how you deal with dividing by a decimal number. You multiply it out by factors of 10 until there's no decimal point in the divisor. So hopefully that helps you out, and I'll see you in the next video.